In the quiet town of Umuaka, life was simple. The sun rose, the market opened, and the people lived by routine. But one afternoon, a sound broke the peace, the roar of a motorbike cutting through the dusty road. A stranger had come. He rode into the market square, his eyes hidden beneath dark glasses, and strapped to his bike was a small black briefcase. Locked, heavy, silent, the people of Umuaka watched. Mothers selling tomatoes whispered to each other. One said, "Who is that man? He doesn't greet, he doesn't smile." Another trader leaned close and replied, "Look at that bag. It could be full of money." The stranger said nothing. He drove straight to Mama Afeoma's compound and asked for a room. His voice was low when he spoke. "I need a place." Just for some weeks, Mama Afeoma, wise and cautious, studied him closely. She answered, "Room I have, but this town does not welcome secrets. You carry many shadows with you, stranger." And so the man stayed. But suspicion followed him like a shadow. That evening, under the old mango tree, the townsfolk gathered. Their tongues were restless. An elder shook his head and said, "His eyes are heavy, like a man running from trouble." A young boy laughed nervously. "Maybe he stole government money. That briefcase must be full of dollars." Rumors spread like wildfire. Fear grew with every whisper. But among all the eyes that watched, one was sharper and more curious than the rest. Her name was Chica, a young girl with a bold spirit. From her window, she saw the stranger lock his door and hide the briefcase. She whispered to herself, "One day I will know what is inside that bag." Night fell. The town went silent, but in the small rented room, the stranger sat in the dark, his eyes fixed on the briefcase. His hand touched the lock gently, clicking it shut again. Thunder rumbled in the distance, as though the heavens themselves knew what was coming. In Umuaka, a storm was brewing, and the arrival of the stranger was only the beginning. Lesson: don't judge people too quickly. What you see may not be the whole story.
Morning came to Umuaka with the sound of roosters and traders setting out their wares. The air was thick with spices, smoke, and chatter, but beneath it all something else lingered: curiosity. The stranger had been in town for only a night, yet his presence had already spread across every corner like wildfire. In the market, tongues wagged. A woman selling plantain leaned toward her neighbor and whispered, "That man carries a secret. I can feel it." Her neighbor, arranging baskets of peppers, replied, "Secret? Huh? I say it is money he hides. Big money. Stolen money." The whispers grew. Children who ran errands for their mothers spoke of the stranger with wide eyes. A group of men drinking palm wine under a shed muttered, "The briefcase is heavy. You could see it in his hand. Whatever is inside will bring trouble to Umuaka." But while most people feared, one person's heart burned with curiosity: Chica. She followed the stranger with her eyes whenever he crossed the market. She noticed the way he walked fast, head down, never stopping to greet anyone. She noticed how tightly he held onto that briefcase, like a child clinging to its mother. That day she thought to herself, why guard a thing so closely unless it carries your soul? Later that afternoon, she crept closer to his window. Through a tiny crack in the wooden shutters, she saw him place the briefcase carefully under the bed. He sat on the edge for a long time, staring at it as though listening to voices that no one else could hear. Chica's breath caught. She whispered, "I must know what he hides." But the stranger moved suddenly, and Chica stumbled back, heart pounding, certain he had heard her. She ran to the yard, hiding behind Mama Ifeoma's water drum. And in that moment, a shadow passed through the yard, long, sharp, dangerous. Someone else had been watching too. Not Chica. Not Mama Ifeoma. Another pair of eyes hidden, waiting. By evening, the gossip in Umuaka had turned to accusation. Some said the man was a thief, others a murderer. One elder shook his head and muttered, "A town that judges with no truth invites its own ruin." But his warning was lost in the noise. The market grew restless. Suspicion is like smoke. Once it escapes, it fills every home. And in Umuaka, the smoke had already entered every door. but none knew that the true fire had not yet begun to burn. Lesson: guard your integrity against gossip and temptation. In Umuaka, secrets have short lives. They move from lips to ears, from ears to hearts, and from hearts to hands. And sometimes those hands reach where they do not belong. On the third morning, the town woke to a stir. The stranger's door was open. His room had been searched, and the briefcase was gone. Mama Ifeoma was the first to see it. She cried out, "Chichineke, the bag is missing." Her voice carried through the compound like a bell. Soon, neighbors gathered. The stranger stood in the doorway, his face stone, his jaw tight. He said nothing. Only his eyes spoke, sharp, cold, accusing. The police came before noon, led by Officer Nana, a man feared for his quick temper. He looked around the small room and said, "A locked bag does not walk away on its own. Someone here knows the truth." The compound fell silent. The rider who sold bread looked away. Mama Ifeoma's son shuffled his feet. Even Chika could not meet the officer's eyes. Whispers began again, sharper than before. "It must be Chinedu, the one who drinks too much." "No, I saw Mama Ifeoma's boy near the stranger's room last night. Or maybe the stranger himself hides it to trick us all." The town was restless. Suspicion spread like poison. That night Chika lay awake, her heart pounding, for she knew something no one else knew. She had seen a shadow in the yard, a hand sliding through the window, a figure moving quick and silent into the night, but fear sealed her lips. She told no one. And so, while the town accused the innocent, the guilty walked free. The stranger sat alone in his empty room, staring at the space beneath his bed where the briefcase once lay. His hand curled into a fist. His whisper was barely a breath, "They will pay." The night swallowed his words, but the storm in Umuaka was only beginning. Lesson: trust is fragile, protect it with honesty. In a town where whispers are louder than truth, even the innocent must learn to fight for breath. The missing briefcase had become a curse, and Umuaka was no longer at peace. By dawn, the marketplace buzzed like a hive struck with a stick. The people gathered under the almond tree, their voices sharp, their fingers pointing. "The stranger brought trouble," one man said, his chest swollen with anger. "No," another shouted. "It is Mama Ifeoma's boy. I saw him near that room." The crowd roared. Blame danced from name to name, never resting. Then came Officer Nana. His heavy boots stamped the dust as he entered the square, his eyes scanning the crowd. He lifted his cane and barked, "Enough. We must choose. Someone must answer for this crime." His words dropped like stones into water. The ripples reached Chika's heart and she trembled. For in her memory, the shadow behind Mama Ifeoma's water drum returned, the figure she had seen but dared not name. But fear chained her tongue. The stranger stepped forward. His voice, calm but sharp, sliced through the noise. "I will not leave until my property is returned. If it does not return, then Umuaka will know sorrow." The people gasped. His words were not a threat, they were a prophecy. Anger flared. Some shouted for him to leave their town. Others demanded the arrest of Mama Ifeoma's son. Mothers clutched their children close while traders packed their goods early, afraid that night would bring blood. Chika watched the fire of chaos spread, and her chest tightened. She wanted to cry out the truth, but her voice drowned in fear. And so, an innocent heart stood at the edge of ruin while the true thief smiled in secret shadows. That night, thunder cracked across the sky. The rain fell hard, drumming against zinc roofs like warning drums. The stranger did not sleep. He sat in silence, staring at the door, his eyes burning with vengeance. In Umuaka, trust had broken. Suspicion had taken root, and once planted, suspicion grows thorns. Then lesson: silence in the face of truth can destroy the innocent.
Night has its own language. In Umuaka, it speaks in whispers of wind, in the rustle of palm leaves, and in the footsteps of those who walk when others sleep. On the fifth night, the stranger's door creaked open. But this time, it was not he who moved. It was another shadow slipping into the compound, soft as smoke, sharp as a knife. Mama Ifeoma, restless from the storm in her home, rose to fetch water. Her lantern flickered against the mud walls as she stepped into the yard. That was when she froze. In the far corner, near the stranger's window, a figure crouched, watching. She raised her lantern, and for a heartbeat, the light caught an eye cold, glinting like metal. Then, just as quick, the shadow vanished into the night. Mama Ifeoma gasped, her heart racing. She knew she had seen something evil, but fear swallowed her scream. At dawn, the stranger rose to find a single warning, a piece of paper slipped under his door. On it, written in hurried, jagged letters, "Leave Umuaka, or you will not live to see the bag again." He crumpled the note in his hand, his knuckles white. His silence was more dangerous than rage. That day, the market trembled. Rumors spread that the stranger had enemies, that his presence would draw death upon them all. Some traders whispered of leaving town until the storm passed. Others said the man himself was cursed, that wherever he went, trouble followed. But Chika, she could not stay silent any longer. She ran to Mama Ifeoma and whispered, "Mama, I saw the thief that night." A shadow, moving fast. It was no child, no boy. It was a man. Mama Ifeoma's face darkened. She held Chika's shoulders and said, "Child, listen to me. The truth is dangerous when spoken in fear. If you carry it, you must carry it boldly." And so the seed of courage was planted in Chika's heart, a seed that would soon grow, though not without pain. That evening, as the sun dipped and the sky bled orange, the stranger stood in the square. His voice carried like thunder. "If my briefcase does not return by the next market day, then the blood of Umuaka will answer for it." The crowd shivered, for they saw in his eyes that he was not a man of empty words. And in the shadows, the true thief watched and smiled. Fear hides the truth, but courage sets it free.
The crowd parted like water before a stone. The man with the scar walked into the open, his steps heavy, his eyes dark. Every gaze followed him, every whisper cut sharper than a knife. Chika's breath caught in her throat. Her voice had revealed him, but now her courage wavered. The stranger's eyes narrowed on the scarred man, a predator studying prey.
Officer Nana raised his cane. "Is this true?"
"Did you take the stranger's briefcase?" The scarred man sneered, his voice rough as gravel. "A child's tale? You gather us here to chase shadows told by little girls?"
"Lies, all lies?"
the people murmured. Some doubted Chika. Others nodded, for they too had seen the scarred man slip through the alleys at night, his face turned from the moon. The stranger stepped forward. His voice was low, but it carried weight. "Where is my briefcase?" The scarred man spat on the ground.
"I owe you no answer."
"Who are you to bring war into our town?" His defiance split the crowd in two, those who believed him and those who did not. And so the square became a battleground of tongues. Truth and lies clashed in the dust. But then the scarred man made a mistake. His eyes flicked just once toward the old warehouse by the riverbank. It was quick like lightning, but the stranger saw it. Chika saw it too. A cold silence followed. The stranger's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Sometimes the eyes betray what the mouth denies. Officer Nana, impatient, barked, "Enough! By tomorrow, if the briefcase does not appear, I will drag you all to the station." He stormed off, leaving the crowd shaken and divided. That night, Chika sat by Mama Ifeoma's fire, her voice trembling. "Mama, I think I know where the briefcase is." Mama Ifeoma frowned, her face shadowed by the flames.
"Child, truth is dangerous. If you follow it, you may not return."
But Chika's jaw tightened. "Still, I must follow." And somewhere, in the darkness near the riverbank, the scarred man waited. His knife glinted in the moonlight. His ears strained for footsteps. His heart beat with fear, not of being caught, but of what would happen if the briefcase was opened.
Lies may cover the truth for a while, but even the eyes cannot hide forever.
The river of Umuaka does not forget. It carries whispers in its waters, hides secrets in its currents, and sometimes it becomes the stage where truth and lies collide. That night, guided by the flicker of moonlight, Chica slipped through the narrow paths toward the old warehouse by the riverbank. Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat warning her to turn back. But her feet would not stop. For courage once born has its own hunger. The warehouse stood silent, its roof sagging, its doors creaking like tired bones. Chica crept closer, each step heavy with fear. Then voices, low, rough, dangerous. Through a crack in the wooden wall she saw them. The scarred man and two others crouched around the briefcase. Their lantern threw shadows on the wall. The scarred man's hand hovered over the lock. "We must open it," one of the men hissed. But the scarred man snapped back, "No, we wait. There are things in here that can burn us all." Chica's breath caught. Her eyes locked on the black briefcase, the object that had turned Umuaka upside down. Suddenly, a hand touched her shoulder. She nearly screamed until she turned and saw him. The stranger, his finger pressed to his lips. His eyes burned with fury, but his steps were calm, calculated. Together they watched, predator and witness standing side by side. The stranger whispered just loud enough for Chica to hear, "Stay silent. Tonight the river will drink the truth." Then he moved, stepping into the warehouse with the silence of a hunter. The men looked up, startled. The scarred man's hand flew to his knife. "You should not have come," he growled. The stranger's voice was steady, sharp as steel. "That briefcase is mine, and those who touch it will not live to tell the tale." The air froze. The men circled, blades flashing in the dim light. Outside, Chica trembled, torn between running for help and staying to witness the storm about to break. The warehouse walls closed in. The briefcase sat between them like a curse, waiting for blood to fall before it could be claimed. Lesson: secrets lure the greedy, but greed always carries a price.
In Umuaka, a deadline is not just a date. It is a drumbeat that grows louder with each hour. And now, the drum of fear thundered in every home. The stranger's warning had spread like wildfire. By the next market day, the briefcase must return. If not, Umuaka would pay. Mothers clutched their children close, fathers sharpened their cutlasses at night, and traders counted their losses, wondering if war had come to their doorstep. The village square became a court of whispers, and in those whispers, suspicion grew teeth. Officer Nana, ever quick with anger, marched into the market and declared, "If the thief does not confess, I will arrest them all." One by one, until truth bleeds out, the people groaned. Some cursed the stranger for bringing darkness. Others cursed the thief for hiding in silence. But in one small room, Chica sat, her fists clenched, her heart heavy. She remembered Mama Ifeoma's words, "The truth is dangerous when spoken in fear. If you carry it, you must carry it boldly." That night, she crept into Mama Ifeoma's room. Her whisper was sharp with tears. "Mama, I can't hold it anymore. I saw the thief." The night the briefcase vanished, a man was there. Tall, quick, with a scar across his cheek. "I swear it," Mama Ifeoma's eyes widened. She nodded slowly and replied, "Then you must speak it before the town. Tomorrow at the gathering." But Chica trembled. Fear still pulled at her like chains. What if they don't believe me? What if he comes for me? Mama Ifeoma's voice grew firm, steady as stone. "Child, silence is what the thief wants. Your voice is the only weapon you carry." And so, the stage was set. At dawn, the bell of the square rang, calling the people to gather. The stranger stood tall, his eyes like storms. Officer Nana stood beside him, his cane ready, his patience thin. The crowd waited, restless. The air was thick, the dust heavy, the tension sharp enough to cut skin. Then Chica stepped forward. Her small figure trembled, but her voice rose, breaking through the crowd. "I saw him." The thief, a man with a scar across his cheek. Gasps shook the crowd, faces turned, whispers darted like arrows. And then, slowly, from the corner of the square, a figure stepped out. A man, tall, broad shoulders, and yes, across his cheek a scar like a dark river. The square fell into silence. The truth had been spoken. But truth, once loosed, does not end the fire. Sometimes it only fans the flames. Lesson: speaking the truth is risky, but silence costs even more. The warehouse by the river shook with the sound of anger. Men circled each other like wild dogs, their knives flashing in the lantern light. In the center lay the black briefcase, silent yet louder than any voice. "This town fears you, stranger, but here it is 3 against 1. Then let the river judge who walks away." And then it began. Steel clashed against steel. Feet thundered against the wooden floor. The men lunged, shouting, their knives slicing the dark. But the stranger moved with precision, each strike cold, calculated, merciless. One man fell, his weapon spinning into the dust. Another stumbled back, clutching his arm. Yet the scarred man fought like a beast, his rage feeding his strength. From the crack in the wall, Chica's eyes widened in terror. She wanted to scream, but her voice was trapped in her throat. She watched as blood streaked the floor, as the stranger and the scarred man locked in a deadly dance. "The bag is mine." The briefcase sat between them, like a god demanding sacrifice. The scarred man lunged with his bare hands, clawing, desperate. The stranger caught him, their struggle twisting and crashing against the walls. Then, with one final strike, the stranger threw him to the ground. Silence fell. The scarred man lay gasping, beaten but not broken. His eyes glared with hatred. "You think you've won? You don't know what's inside that bag. If you open it, Umuaka itself will bleed." The stranger stood over him, chest heaving, his hand resting on the briefcase. For a moment his face darkened, as if the weight of the scarred man's words was heavier than the fight itself. Outside, Chica trembled, her tears mixing with the night air. The battle had ended, but the war had only begun. Lesson: violence may silence enemies, but it cannot silence consequences. African story.
The night was thick with silence after the fight. The scarred man lay broken on the warehouse floor, his breath ragged, his words still echoing. "If you open it, Umuaka itself will bleed." The stranger's hand hovered over the briefcase. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with a decision only he could make. Chica, still hidden in the shadows, clutched her chest.
She whispered to herself, what could be inside?
Gold? Money? Or something worse? The stranger knelt, his fingers sliding across the lock. The scarred man's laugh, weak but sharp, rose into the air. "Open it then! Let them all see what you protect." The lock clicked, the lid creaked open, and inside, not gold, not money, not jewels. Papers, files, documents stamped with seals of government, lists of names, accounts of stolen funds, evidence of corruption that reached beyond Umuaka into the hands of men whose shadows stretched across the land. Chica gasped. She did not understand it all, but she knew this. The briefcase carried power, dangerous power. The stranger lifted his head, his voice low but firm. "This is why I came. To keep it safe, to protect what could destroy lives." The scarred man spat blood and growled, "You are a fool. With that case you could buy kingdoms.
Instead, you hide like a rat."
But the stranger's eyes softened just for a moment as he turned toward the door. Some treasures are not meant to be owned, only guarded. At dawn, the people of Umuaka gathered at the square. The stranger stood before them, the briefcase at his side. He spoke little, but his words struck like thunder. "Judge not by what you see. Judge not by rumor. The truth hides deeper than gossip can reach. What I carry is not yours to know, but be warned. Suspicion can destroy a people faster than war." The townsfolk lowered their eyes, ashamed. Their whispers had nearly destroyed them. Their fear had nearly condemned the innocent. And as suddenly as he had come, the stranger mounted his motorbike, the briefcase tied once more to its side. The engine roared, the dust rose, and he vanished down the long road, leaving only questions and lessons behind. Chica watched him go, her young heart forever changed. She whispered, "Some secrets are not for the curious. Some are burdens too heavy for one town to carry." And so Umuaka returned to its rhythm. The market reopened, the children laughed again, but in every heart remained the memory of the stranger, the scarred man, and the black briefcase. For stories like these never truly end. They sleep waiting like embers under ash. Lesson: gossip breeds chaos, but truth, though heavy, is the only path to peace.